Hi, I'm Natalie, and this is So Hungry Hippie YouTube channel. Today I'm going to take you through making the undercover. This is a pattern from By Annie, and I just thought it would be really fun since we're doing kits for me to sort of sew with you. Now, please note, if you buy her pattern, we have it in stock, and we also have kits. She does have her own video as well, so you could always watch her video. First up, there are 3 sizes, small, medium, and large in this pattern, and we offer all those sizes in the kits too at SoHungryHippie.com. So the first thing I want you to do is measure your machine. Measure the height, which is like this. Measure the width. Mine is about 17 wide. And then measure the depth, which is on your machine bed right here. Mine is 7 inches. So for me, the medium is going to cover my machine. I will need to push down my thread. What is this called? My thread pull. When I go to put the cover on. For now, I'm going to leave it up because that's how I sew. But if you have an extension table on your machine, when you use this cover, you'll need to remove that. So just grab a tape measure quick and do your measurements, height, width, and depth, and make sure that you're making the correct size for your machine. All right, so I will be making the medium. I'm going to be doing these beautiful, stunning Jennifer Paganelli fabrics right here. I've got 3 fabrics here. And then I've got some fold over elastic for the binding on the mesh pockets. We included mesh. We also included the SF101 fusible interfacing and a very large package of the By Annie soft and stable foam. This is not a large package because we have them all allocated for right now, but just so you know, that is in there, as well as 2 sew-in magnets. Now by sew-in, you're going to whip stitch these in. And then also a coordinating zipper with 2 pulls. Now, if you want to leave any of these zipper pockets or mesh pockets off, go ahead and do it. It's totally fine. Whatever you do is your decision. I'm just going to do the pattern as she has written it to the best of my ability right now. I do have a couple of things I want to talk about. First of all, when we're quilting the fabric and the soft and stable together, you'll have fabric, soft and stable, fabric. So I used to just press with an iron, but once in a while I would get lumps or bumps. So now what I tend to do is spray base the fabric to the foam on both sides, and then I take it to the machine and quilt it. If you prefer using safety pins or straight pins or whatever method you like for quilting, you're right. If it works for you, you're right. Do what's best for you. And I know this is my lifesaver because I don't like to unpick and I don't like to do things twice. So here we go. I'm just going to skip that whole first page and get into the cutting. So down on page 2 in that bottom right hand corner, she has the things you need to cut from the main fabric. So when you get your kit, decide what fabric is going to be your main. We probably have cut it like this to be your main, this to be the lining, this to be the accent fabric and binding, or something to that nature. You decide. We're giving you a lot of fabric, so you can decide what you want to do. I have my Aliso iron on high heat, ready to go. Gutermann thread, universal needle 8012. I'm going to be sewing on this Juki 18 today. I've got my Odif spray ready to go, a pen for marking in my pattern. I've got Wonder clips in case I don't want to pin. I've got pattern weights. Acrylic rulers, rotary cutters, you know, all the typical tools. So we will go overhead and I think we'll cut everything out like we normally do, and then I'll show you how to quilt one big panel, and then the other quilting sections will just triple speed, okay? so that this video stays short enough to watch. All right, so I need to cut my pattern felt. A lot of times when I get a By Annie pattern, by the way, I staple it because they're not stapled, they're just loose sheets, and sometimes my things just go flying everywhere. So that's an option. Okay, so set A to be quilted. Cover front, cover, and back cover. I need to cut mine. I'm not going to say measurements to respect her pattern, okay? It's very important we keep supporting designers and buying their patterns and not sharing or copying. Okay, so let's see. I always have to remember too, I usually write my patterns width times height, but other designers sometimes flip that. So let me make sure. Yeah, hers is height by width. All right, let's get started. Okay, so I cut out all the fabric on fast speed because it's straightforward, and our kits always give you some extra in case you miscut anything. You will look at all this fabric that's extra. I'll probably make a little easy zipper case to put some of my tools in beside my machine or something fun. I'm going to keep it to the side in case I didn't cut something right. I'm not going to cut out my interfacing just yet, even though she has these little tags, because a lot of times I like to quilt and then cut it down to size. So for my interfacing, I'm just going to take it all the way to the edges on whatever pieces need it. quilt it, and then I'll trim it if need be. Don't get confused. This part was a little confusing. She has tags that say quilted fabric and then what you're cutting, but that's not right now. That's after we have quilted our fabric, okay? So you don't have a million things to cut right now. So that whole section, just keep it to the side. It's nice to have those tags so you remember what pieces are what, and you can pin it or clip it to the quilted panels once we've done that. All right, let's get ready for the next step. Okay, this is part B where we're quilting our fabrics. And I'm just gonna take you overhead and show you how I do this. So if we can go overhead, I'm gonna use my spray. So I've sprayed a little bit on there, and I can always spray more later. This is how I'm going to start it. I give myself a little bit of an edge, a lip there at the top, and then I'm going to smooth it down. It's not a permanent spray, so you have time to move things around however you need. You also can spray the back of the fabric and smooth it. Okay, I'm gonna cut this down so it's easier to manipulate. I always give myself some room here. Okay. And now I can see down here, it's not sprayed. Here we are. Okay, so now the front fabric is pretty good. Don't see any wrinkles. You can go over it with your iron if you like. And now I'm gonna do the same for the lining on the back. Now don't look too closely, I cut mine wrong. I had to piece it. That's okay, nobody will notice, just you and me will know. You and I. Now the thing about this is you do want it straight up and down with the fabric on the front side too. So don't put it on all cockeyed and wonky. Try to get it straight up and down on both sides. And that's where I find the 505 spray comes in major handy help. Oh no, I'm almost out. All right. Always check the front again. Okay, it's looking good. So now you can decide if you want to do free motion quilting, if you want to draw lines or do a design, or maybe you want to throw it on your long arm and do it. I don't know. It's up to you. Sky's the limit. I am just going to do straight lines, I think, or maybe diamonds. Ooh, I think I like diamonds. So I'm going to use my acrylic ruler and my hero marker, and I start in the middle and work out. And that way, in case there's any air bubbles or pockets, I can smooth it out as I'm quilting from the center outward. So let's take it overhead. I'm gonna line this up as best I can. It's not a square, so you're gonna have to do a 45-degree line if you want to make the design I am. I don't get too crazy. I just do the best I can with that first mark. Can you see that? I can see it with this, But sometimes on camera things don't show up, so let me see if I can chalk it as well. And the trick to all of this is to not be too hard on yourself and do the best you can with where you're at today. You'll always get better if you practice. Okay, let's take it to the machine. I'm on a 3mm stitch length. I'm gonna start up here. Oops, we need to go to the, need to line my machine up. How's that? All right, let me see, make sure I'm out of the way. Is that good, Ramel? Now don't push or pull, let your feed dogs do the work. I'm gonna stop with my needle down, and this, I sort of have to fold this in, same as if you were doing a quilt. Because the throat here is not large enough, you kind of have to roll this up. Okay, you don't have to backstitch here. All these edges are going to be cut off anyways, so backstitching doesn't matter. So there's my first. Let's go back overhead. Now you can choose to measure more, or you can use your foot. It really doesn't matter. Anything is correct. I'm going to do 2 inches over. I'm going to line my 2-inch mark on that stitching line. Bring it all the way down. And then take it through again. Now, what I was saying with rolling it up is you may have to do this. I do, because my machine isn't that big. So now I'm going to take it over to the machine and feed it in the same direction. And here we go. Something wrong? No. And we're just going to carry on doing this all the way across, and then we'll go this way, and then I think we'll quilt it this way as well. One thing at a time. You can check what's going on back here. Looking good. Probably can't even see this thread really. I'm using a pale pink, but it can be hard to see. so one side is quilted. Just gonna check it. Yep, looks good. Now I'm gonna challenge myself to now go the other direction. You don't have to do this, but it's a really pretty look. So I want those diamonds, diamond shapes. And now I'm gonna make my 45-degree lines here. You could just maybe do it for the front and not the back. But whatever you do it for you. Another quick tip is if you have any troubles, you might want to invest in a walking foot. It can really help when quilting. This machine, I don't tend to need it ever. But on another machine, I would probably be using my walking foot. Oh, that looks so cool. I'm gonna have to rub out that chalk mark right there, that chalk line. Get a wet cloth and do that. And right here I can see I looked up at Ramel, I went, that's okay. I can fix that later. Okay. That's not pretty. Let's go front view, sorry. really want this supported. If you have a table that can hold it while you're sewing, that would be great. Because if you let it hang down towards the floor, it can tend to pull and then your foot won't go anywhere. I'm going to continue quilting the other direction, and I'll meet you back here for the next portion. Okay, now we are on to part C, and this is where we cut out our quilted pieces from the chart. Now it's really important to just give yourself a second and make sure you're cutting the correct way, because remember she does height times width, and that you're cutting the right size for your machine. So I am making a medium for this Juki TL18, and it is the correct size. But you want to look at that page 15 and make sure that you're cutting the pieces in the correct orientation. Because if you don't, you'll have to just start over and use the quilted pieces for a bag. Not the end of the world, but we're trying to get something done, right? Okay, so I'm going to take a look at this sheet while I get my instructions out of the way. And I'm going to do the medium, so I'm just going to circle the area. I'm doing option 1, medium. So what I really like to do to keep myself organized, can you see that, is I circle the diagram that I'm cutting. Okay, so cover front. We want to get rid of all raw edges as well. So I'm going to go overhead and just be quiet. So now I'm on to cut quilted panel C, which is the long one. Almost there. I have to get a magnifying glass. Okay, I've done all of cutting out of A, B, and C panels. Whew. Now I can breathe because I tend to mess those up. So that's why I circle, I make myself notes, I remind myself height times width. Okay, so the latter part of C is 2. So around the edges, all around these edges, to seal in the foam. So you can do that with a straight stitch or a zigzag stitch, whatever you like. A zigzag along the edge will compress the foam a bit more if you're worried about thicknesses, so do a zigzag if you can. My machine only does straight stitch, so that's what I'm doing. Okay, so there's one. I have some of my pieces on the floor because people are borrowing my tables. So, that's all right. Let's seal the rest. Okay, so part C is done. We've cut out our pieces and we have sealed them. So after a short break, we will come back for part 3 called Prepare Components, and we'll fuse our interfacings. Okay, this is part 3, section A, where we're fusing the interfacings. So you're working with your coordinating fabric, and you want to make sure you're grabbing the right pieces. We have pocket A border and flap facings. So I'm going to go overhead and we will turn the iron on and start fusing our fabrics. Do it this way. You may have pre-cut your interfacing, and that's great. You do whatever you need to do. Trim that down in a second. If you want to put a pressing cloth on top of this, if you're worried that you're going to hit any interfacing poking out on the edges, just use a pressing cloth. Okay, I'm going to put these tags back on the pieces. We are done with part A. So now we're going to move on to part B, prepare bias binding. So now we're in section 3, part B, where we're making the bias binding. Don't be afraid of this, it's very easy. There are lots of different ways to make binding, but we're going to use the steps that by Annie outlines in the pattern. So let's go overhead. You've got your 23-inch square strip of contrast fabric, and we are going to do a cut from the top corner down to the bottom corner. So first I like to make a chalk line so I know that I'm cutting correctly. I'm going to grab a tailor's chalk because it's a little bit easier to wield. Well, usually. Okay. Can you see that? So now I am going to do the cut. So we have got these two long bias edges, and the bias just means that it stretches. You see that? It stretches way more than warp and weft. Warp and weft is this way, so we need those edges. Now in the diagram, figure 2, she's got one triangle like this and the other triangle, short sides together. Let's make sure we're lining these correctly, right sides together along this edge. And just check your diagram and make sure you've got it correct. And then I'm going to throw a couple pins in. We're going to sew along this edge, joining the piece together again. I know it seems strange, but it works. And if you've done this before, you know what's going on here. Okay, now I'm going to sew this edge. Let's take it to the machine. Now I'm going to open that. I need my little pressing mat. Don't pull and stretch on this. Let's press it first. And now we're going to open it. Just press the seam to one side. Okay. Now we've got this kind of parallelogram shape, right? All right, now we need to cut our strips. Cut 2 inches. So I'm going to do those first. I'm going to line my ruler up down here on this raw edge and cut. I'll have to move the ruler up as I'm cutting. There's one. There's 2. Okay, I'm going to set those to the side for a moment because now we need to cut 5 2 1/4 inch strips. So just a little bit taller. Awesome. So now I set aside the 2-inch ones, so I'm not going to mix them up. And then the last step in part B, number 5, join the ends of the 5 2 1/4 inch strips together, offsetting the tips. I'm going to take you overhead because this can be a little confusing if you've never done it. So I'm going to set one flap. It can help to just do it exactly like she shows in this diagram. So let me get situated here. This one is going to come up here. Oh, I'm gonna have to flip this. So what we're doing is, see how you want it to join like that? So then you have to flip it to sew it right sides together. So we're going to sew right along here. And this strip has to be going that way, and this one is this way. Or reverse, like her, however you want it to be. It's just that in order to be binding, it needs to stretch. So this is how I have to sew it. I'm going to throw a pin in here. And let's take this to the machine. Try not to stretch as you're sewing. Just let the feed dogs do their thing. Okay, let's see how close I got. Let's go back overhead. It's usually not perfect, but it's good enough. Oh, I really offset that one. I need to do that again. See how this side is way too high and this is not down low. It's okay. It's been a long time since I've done this. So let's try it again. No big deal. It usually takes me a time or two to get the hang of this again. So let's try it again. Let's bring this down. See how this corner is offset here? Yeah. You want like this little corner down here so that after we do our 1/4 inch seam, it's going to be at the right level. So have this hanging off. Can you see how much that hangs off? It's a bit. And you know what? This doesn't have to be absolute perfection. Get it as close as you can to make it work, and it'll be fine. This is just bias binding. Okay, here we go. Try not to stretch. I just want to make sure my edges are matching. Okay, let's go back overhead. Much better. Okay, so now I'm going to do the next strip. And for me, it just really helps to test, make sure my placement is going to be correct. Yes, that's correct. So now I need to offset that corner. All right, I'm probably going to run this through my bias tape maker machine, but there are plenty of ways to fold this pretty quickly. You can Google it if you want. You can put 2 pins in your ironing board and start the fold and then just pull it through. Maybe I should do that. Okay, so to make the binding, let's just iron it now and get it done. What I want you to do is cut a scrap piece of paper, 3/7/5 tall, 3 3¾ inch tall, and 8½ wide is fine, just like from a sheet of paper. And then we're gonna go overhead and I'm gonna show you how to fold it. So just like as if it was binding, you're folding the long edges in and then give it a press. It's easier to do this step if you have a big iron like this. So now what we're gonna do is get our binding started by folding. See how I have this section started? It's just to get us going. Then you're gonna put it in the paper, aligning those long edges, fold it down, have a little tail here, and then turn your iron so it doesn't pop up, it's down, and then we're gonna start pulling this through. There we go.
Hold the paper on the left side.
There we go. I'm gonna have to hold my paper a bit. And you're just making sure that the edges are folded in. Again, this doesn't have to be absolute perfection. We can always repress later if need be. But you do want those raw edges in. And sometimes when you come up here to these joins, just iron them flat. Either open or to one side, it doesn't really matter. You just want them to behave as we're pulling this through. the joins, you could also just take your iron over it. Okay, keep going. It's hot. It's good to have all this bias just flat. Here comes another join. I'm going to see if I can get it through. Somewhat. And go to front camera. All right, so we've got all of our binding, and I'm just going to set that behind me for now. All right, where are we at? We just did part B. So now we are going to head to part C, called prepare the zipper pulls. So for part C, it's optional to me. I don't know that I will do this, but I'm going to show you how. It's essentially like a little tassel for the zipper pull. So you'll start with these two really skinny strips, and let's go overhead. You're going to make these like bias binding. So you take that strip and you fold in the long edges and press. And then you're going to fold over again. See how skinny this is? This is going to be fed through the zipper pull if you want to. So you'll press again. And then we're going to sew down that open edge. So I'll go to the machine. And we're just going to close up that edge. Okay, so just do the best you can. If you want to make these, you can go down the other edge if you want to. It's really up to you. So now we're on part D, preparing the zipper. I'm going to go overhead and put on my, at least one pull, cut the section, and then the other pull and cut the section. So let's go overhead. Here. All right, make sure you're cutting your zippers to the correct length for the cover that you're making. Double check. I'm making the medium. So check the pattern before you cut. Okay, now I'm going to sew over these short ends so that I don't pull the zipper pull off inadvertently. These teeth look metal, but they're nylon. So if you bought a Sew Hungry Hippie kit or a zipper, you can sew right over the teeth. All right, the zippers are prepared. Now we're going to move on to the next section, which is making the pockets. So now we're on Roman numeral 4, prepare the pockets. Make sure in that gray rectangle box that you're pulling the correct pieces. It could take a minute to get organized. We're adding a border for interest, but we need to make sure that we attach it in the correct place. So let's go overhead. This is pocket A2, and I have the outside fabric up. And I'm gonna measure 2.5 inches down because I'm making the medium, and draw a chalk mark. Okay. Now I'm gonna take the border material, which was the contrasting fabric that is interfaced with SF101, and I'm gonna place it on here so that with my seam allowance, it's gonna fold up and to the same edge. It's just for a little interest. So if you don't wanna do this, it's okay. But I think it'll be fun, and it's in the pattern, so why not? I'm gonna pin it in place because it is a long strip, and I wanna make sure I'm not moving it, it's adding correctly, that kind of thing. I guess I could have put my pins a little lower so that I'm not sewing over them. So just so we're clear, I am gonna draw my sewing line right there for you. All right, let's sew this on. Yeah, we're good. We're okay. All right, I'm gonna grab my iron. Oops. If you have a little overage here like I do, just trim that away. She says that right in the pattern. So it's okay. I'm gonna move this out of the way. I really should have my bigger, let me grab my bigger cutter, because when you have some thickness here, it can be hard for that rotary blade wheel to get down there at that level. All right. Woo, how pretty. So now we're gonna attach our long zipper. And this is plenty long here. So again, I'm gonna use some double-sided sticky tape because you don't have to, but I just find it really easy, so why not? Why not use the tools that make things easier for us, right? Let's put double-sided sticky tape here. Press it down. All right. Okay, and we're gonna sew all across here. Now I'm gonna move that pull out of the way. Up. Yes, it's all attached. Just make sure it's all attached. Looks good. Get that in there for the moment. Oh, we're going to attach the other packet. All right, so we attach that zipper. Now we're going to push that seam allowance down and stitch it in place, and that'll cover the raw edges. The zipper tape will cover it. So I'm going to go to the machine and just feel for that seam allowance and make sure it's going this way. And I think you do want to sew from the top just so the stitches are really good, look really nice. But just stop every so often to make sure your seam allowance is down, going towards the left. That's why we're sewing it. All right. So now we're going to attach this pocket to this side. We can do the same exact thing. Can you hear Tori snoring? What a life. Right sides together and match up these side edges. And raw edge with the top of the zipper tape. Okay, let's sew this together. Now the same thing, except you're going to push the seam allowance up, and then we'll top stitch that. Oops. Tape grabbed. All right, let's go back to the machine. Whenever you stop, make sure your needle is down so that you're not skipping any stitches. All right, let's go overhead. And there's the pocket for right now. Hopefully most of my edges are, the top one I did better than the bottom one. That's okay, I can always take another stitch pass to cover it. And this is the inside of the pocket. Okay, and here's the outside of the pocket. So now we have done all of that for step A. And if needed, trim the height of the pocket. So for me, it's about 13 inches. So I just need to trim a tiny smidge. Let's see. Not even half an inch. So I'm going to do it off of the bottom, I think. Just a smidge. Okay. And then measure and make sure your pocket is the correct height according to the size that you're making. So now let's just review that we have all of that done. That was part D, trimming. Now I'm going to flip the page to page 6. Awesome. So we're on to part B. Take a quick breather and we'll be right back. So now we're on part B, prepare pocket B, and I am going to be doing option 2. You can decide which option you want. If you're going to do option 1, you're just going to bind the top edge. If you're doing option 2, like I am, you're going to trim it down a little bit on the width and then bind the left edge. So I'm going to take you overhead and show you. So this one I need to trim a little bit away. And then I'm going to reseal this edge by just sewing a straight line. Okay, I'm going to bring it over here. And back to overhead. Now what we're going to do is bind this edge, and because I like to do machine binding, I'm going to go like this and sew in the ditch along this edge. So let's grab some clips. You open up the binding and put that raw edge along the raw edge of the quilted piece. You can trim the excess away. We can trim it closer in a minute. But if you can see this, this is right where we're going to sew, is right in that ditch. And then we'll fold it up. Let's go to the machine. You're going to fold it up, give it a press, tuck in that raw edge, it should meet, and then fold this over. And you can press that with the iron to make it behave a little better, and then use clips to hold it in place while we sew down that edge. And doing it this way, so right along here, it ensures that the top, the outer facing piece, is the nicest looking piece. I'm going to grab my stiletto. Sorry. Check to make sure that everything is secure and looks good. If you give it a quick press with your iron, it'll look fantastic. So the pocket will be on the cover so that entry is from the left, because my extension table is long. So that's why I went for option 2. Okay, now we are on to part C, which is preparing pocket C. All right, let's do pocket C. That's your almost square quilted piece. I'm going to go overhead. We're going to attach the zipper the same way we did the other one, by sewing down, lifting up, folding that seam allowance down, and top stitching. And then we have binding for the raw edge of the zipper tape. So let's go ahead and attach the zipper. If it helps to use the double-sided sticky tape, please go ahead and use it. I'm just going to show another way of doing it in case somebody doesn't have that yet. I'm going to pull right out of my way, and we're going to sew all the way across the top. Let's go to the machine. And now I think we can just stay here. We're just going to fold that seam allowance down so that we're hiding the raw edges and top stitch it, just like before. Make sure your pull is out of your way. Yeah, pretty good. Got it there. Okay, let's go back to the work table. So this, now we're going to bind. And I'm going to do cheater method here just to save some time. I'll show you what, oh my gosh, I need to just leave my tape out. I'm going to put some double-sided sticky tape here. You could also just put it on the zipper, doesn't matter. All right. Lay your zipper in there. And this will allow us to attach it all in one pass. Be careful to not cover or get close even to your zipper teeth when you're laying this down. And remember, this will stretch, so you need to be mindful and not pull on it sideways, or you'll end up sewing lumps in here. It's not permanent, so you can readjust. All right. Let's go to the machine. Everything is sewn on. Let's go back. Make sure your zipper is working. Okay. Now we have to trim the pocket height. For me, it's going to be 9¼ So just need to trim this and then reseal that edge by sewing down. And then we're done with that pocket. All right, you don't have to trim it just yet. Let's see, she doesn't say to yet, I don't think. Not yet, so I better just leave it be. I'm going to clean up my area, and then we're going to come back and do pocket D. So now we're going to make pocket D. This is with mesh. If you want the top to sort of gather in, then use the fold over elastic technique I'm going to be using. It is kind of a pain in the butt. So if you want to make your mesh pocket with regular binding, you can absolutely do that. You could also make a clear vinyl pocket instead and use regular binding, or you can leave the mesh pocket off. It's totally up to you. Let's go overhead. I am going to lay some double-sided sticky tape along this elastic. Even though I'm going to be stretching it as I pull, this sort of helps me get going. And I'm gonna align this left edge with the left edge of the elastic and just kind of keep the rest out of the way. Then I'm folding this down. I'm gonna get started sewing right here. And then I'm gonna have to pull as I'm sewing. And that's what I mean. Sometimes fold over elastic is a pain, but it's kind of fun too. It's a new technique. So give it a go. Okay, now I'm gonna have to start to pull. And if I pull it to here, I'm at the end, and it can help me. That tape just kind of helps me hold everything in place while I'm doing this. Stop with the needle down. Fold it over. Stop with the needle down again. Fold it over. Now we're getting down to the last bit. Okay, so see how it kind of bunches? And it can stretch to hold your petal. So again, you don't have to use the fold over elastic, but it is in your kit if you bought a kit from us. So that is pocket D. I can mark that off. That was page 6. So now we are on to page 7, Roman numeral 5. Prepare, cover, front, and cover back. We're getting down to assembling our cover. Now we're on Roman numeral 5. Prepare the cover front and cover back. So you're going to take the large pocket, this is pocket A that we made, and place it right on top of your front cover quilted piece. So here's my front cover piece. Here's my big pocket. We're going to lay it on top, aligning all the edges, and then use clips to hold these in place. If anything is not lining up, you should probably, well, let's trim it after we sew this down. That will be better. This one I can see is way longer, and so my clip probably won't reach that. So I'm just going to trim that down now. Okay. Pull your zipper pull in away from the side right now before you forget. Looks like I'm just trimming it up so I don't miss sewing these edges. Okay, now down here. Okay. Make sure this looks good. Okay, let's sew all the way around. now I'm just going to check all my seams and bring my clips over from the machine. Let's make sure I caught everything. Yeah. Awesome. And now we have a beautiful pocket, big pocket all the way across. Amazing. All right, so there's my front. Now you have a circle template in the back of the pattern, and we're gonna round those top corners. So one of the ways you can do it is to use a marking tool and then cut, or if you have good control, you can use a 28mm rotary cutter and just cut it at once, which is what I'm going to do. Let's go overhead. Make sure you're only doing your top corners, by the way. You just kind of line your piece here. And it's not very much, so, but it's rounded now. And you can smooth it out, but all that kind of gets taken care of with the binding and the finishing anyways. Okay. So let's check mark off pocket A. We've done that. And we did step 3, which was the circular cutting there. Now yeah, it's already sewn around the edges, so we're good to go there. Now we're going to do part B, which is preparing the cover back. I'm going to set this over here. B is your other exactly the same measurement piece. And then for the cover back, we need the pocket B quilted fabric that we just made. Let's find, where did I put my pocket B? This one, I believe. So you might have the pocket with the long edge bound. I have the pocket with the left edge bound. So that's why there are options 1 and 2, okay, in the pattern. So that we're on page 7, part B. So just make sure that you're attaching the correct way for the option that you made in a previous step. Let's go overhead. Move this out of the way. So mine is this pocket with the left edge opening. So I've aligned these 3 edges, and we're gonna sew around the perimeter just like we did for the front. But not along here. You want this open, and if you're doing the option with the top open, you leave the top open, of course. Okay, so for me, I'm going across, down, and across. All right. So I'm definitely going to be able to put my extension table in here or whatever else I want. So that was part B. And now I'm going to flip to page 8. Exciting. Okay, so we've got this. Now we need to round the top corners of the piece we just made. So let's go overhead, and I'm going to do the same thing. Top corner only. Okay. Let's make sure that that's pretty rounded. Okay. Awesome. Okay, we're going to take a quick break and then we'll move on to Roman numeral 6. So now we are on Roman numeral 6 called Prepare Flaps and Side Strips. So think of this as the part, it's like a gusset in a bag. Now, I don't have the exact same kind of magnets that Bianni is using in hers, so I'm adjusting these top and under covers just a little bit. So I'm going to take you overhead, and the first thing you want to do is have your back flap. Have the lining side up for right now and just set it up here. Then you want to take your contrast fabric. What is this called? Let's see. Flap facings. And what we're going to do, according to the size you're making, she has a diagram there on page 8. You want to mark where you're going to sew in your magnets. Now that's if you have those circle magnets in the plastic cover, you're going to sew those in right now. If you're making the kit with me, I have these sew-in magnets that we're going to whip stitch on at the end. And let me tell you, the reason I use this kind of magnet is because I've had issues with the kinds in the circles that are covered in plastic. When I sew them in, they don't always look the best. And I want total control on placement because I'm not sure where I want this. My machine handle is over towards the right side of the machine. It's not right in the center. So I'm going to leave the magnets for now and put them on at the end. But the rest of this we can carry on together. So let's take this overhead. I'm going to bring this down. You are going to need the circle template again. And you're going to place this flap facing right sides together. And then what we're going to do, this is, let's see here, we could go step 1, step 2, with interface side of the facing against the lining side, So interface side against the lining side, align the flap facing on the back. Magnets are going to be down here if you sewed those in. And then what we're going to do is stitch 1/8 of an inch from the edge along this side, the bottom, and the top. Okay? And then what we're going to do is on the bottom, we will cut a curved shape on these corners. So I'm just going to take my pins quick. Throw a couple of pins in here. Okay, we'll sew all around this piece, and then we'll take our binding, the 2-inch binding, and we'll bind just the side, bottom, and side edges. So let's go to the machine. I'm going to start over here. Get down to a corner, needle down, lift the foot, and pivot. This helps to make the piece one unit for when we're attaching the binding. So, but first let's make our curved corners just in the bottom area. Again, you can always draw a line and then cut if you're more comfortable doing it that way. And just these bottom corners. We don't need to bind that top edge. So this is my outside. So I'm going to attach it the classic way of sewing in the ditch, just like we did earlier, and then flipping it around to the front. So let's head to the machine and we'll do this. Now, on this curved corner, it can help if you take your iron and train the binding to curve. It will curve because we made it the correct way. I'm going to take it out and show you what I'm talking about with training your fabric. So here's the ironing surface. We have our hot iron. So because we cut this on the bias, if you bring it over here and kind of train it with your hot iron, it's going to curve perfectly with no puckers. And you can use clips to hold that in place if you want. And if you want to go down in stitch length to like a 2.5, that can be easier too on the curves. Okay, I'm gonna bring my ironing mat back. And now I'm gonna flip it to the front. And the raw edges are tucked under. See how good that is going to look now? Love it. And then just like before, we will sew this side down. Awesome. There we go. And again, we don't need to bind that top edge. So let me let you see this. We're going to start up here and sew all the way around to secure it to the front. I'm just going to grab this stiletto again. You can go as slow as you need to. Awesome. Cool. Okay, so we just did the front flap, or no, sorry, that's the back flap. So you want to make sure you attach your marker piece that says this is the back flap. Now, like I was saying, I didn't use the same magnets she did, so Just remember that my magnets, I'll be attaching these at the end with cute little DMC floss. And that doesn't bother me at all, but I'm going to do that at the end. Okay, now we got to do the other side, the front flap. Okay. Okay, so now we're going to do the top flap. We just finished the bottom flap or back flap. So I marked the markings as indicated in the pattern. Remember, look at the size you're making. This is where, if you're using her style of magnet, you're going to sew them in right now. I have marked the top of my flap because all I did, not that it matters with non-directional fabric, but I decided I didn't want these two flowers right next to each other. So this is going to be my top. So I marked it with a little blue edge. And then what we do is the magnets will go at the top of this one. And just like before, we're going to sew all the way around to attach these pieces right now. So if you need clips, do clips. Okay, let's sew this at the machine. Trim up some excess SF101 hanging out there. This way. Okay, so now we've got to bind this edge, not the top, just like before. I'll put a pin in here to remind me that's the top. And then grab the other 2-inch section of binding. All right, here we go. Cut this first. Look what I did. Well, I guess they're going to be facing each other now. Don't do that. Do it right. I knew it as soon as I cut the first one, looking at that pin. It's okay. This is why we sew. It's always fixable. Good thing I'm sewing in my magnets last. I would have had the magnets in the wrong spot. But you know what? I would have just unpicked it and moved the magnets up. Like, it's not the end of the world. Nothing to get really upset with yourself over. We're just humans. We make mistakes. Okay, let's go to the machine now, and I'll put on this binding. you want to really like your finished project. So you definitely don't have to do this in one day or one sewing session. I do notice a lot of times when I've been doing something for a while, and I start to get a little renegade, aka sewing laziness. So just take a break. Trim the edges. Okay, so we've got these flaps like this, or we're gonna go like this maybe. As long as I've got one labeled back, I know the other is the front. Yeah, it looks like actually everything is okay because they're gonna overlap like this. And that's how the magnets connect to one another. So everything's okay. I didn't screw it up. All right, so we've got that. So now that we have finished that section, the flaps, we're going to move to section B, which is prepare left side strip. So I really like how the pieces that we need are in the gray boxes. It helps to organize yourself. So for this step, we need the left side strip. So for me, that was the 15 and some by 8 and some. So let me find that piece. I think it might be this one. Yep, left side strip. Pocket C, which, no, that one was, pocket C was the squarish pocket. And side strip binding, which for me is 2 by 8.5, this one. Okay, so now that I've got all these laid out, I can feel a little bit more organized and we can carry on. Okay, grab your pocket C and let's place it on that side panel. So I trimmed away the excess that I had hanging over here so that I could put my clips on and everything fits. And then this binding piece will go on up here. But first, let's sew this pocket C to this panel. Awesome. Pocket works. We also have a zippered pocket here. So good. Now I'll put this on the correct way, even though I was just tempted to do the cheater method. I'm going to sew right in that ditch, starting on the lining side. Here we go. Now we're going to stay here. I'm just going to bring it up and fold it down and over. And it should cover the stitching we just did. And I do like to put clips here to make sure that it doesn't shift while I'm sewing it. Okay, and here we go. And I'm way out there at that outer edge. And back to the work surface. There we are. Look at that. Yay! I'm going to throw this away. Okay. Let's take a look at where we're at. Let me grab my pen and mark everything. We did that. Okay, we're on part C, which is preparing the right side strip. So the remaining panel that you have for your size, we're gonna lay that on the work surface, and then we need pocket D, which is the mesh fabric pocket, this one. And side strip binding, the second binding strip, which I'm gonna press real quick, and then we'll attach this. So be right back. All right, let's attach this mesh pocket. Now, don't let the mesh scare you. Just go slowly. It's fine. Everything's fine. We're gonna line up one side and use a bunch of clips here. And then I'm gonna line up this side. You want the pocket to sort of bubble up. Right? And then along the bottom, you can kind of fold it if it's easier. Nobody is gonna notice this or see how you attach this pocket because your petals and cords are gonna go in here. Isn't that awesome? All right, let's sew the pocket on. You know what would be fun is if we had a little tag to sew in here. Maybe I could add this one and just put it underneath here. What do you think, Ramel? Like under there?
That's pretty.
You think that's okay?
Maybe in front of it?
Do you think in front?
Yeah.
Okay. I didn't know if that was too, you know, like ostentatious. Like, oh my God, this is a So Hungry Happy sewing cover. Now again, we're going to add the binding to this edge. Okay, let's take it to the machine. Sewing right in that ditch. And then the same thing we did last time, fold it up and over. Tori, making a lot of snores. And this, there we go. If you need to whack that with your iron, please do. Don't whack it, but hit it with the iron or whatever we call that. To the surface. Get this out of the way. Oh my gosh, I love it. Okay, we also need to mark our elastic placement line, which is the same for all sizes. Where's my chalk? I'm just gonna mark it with the blue. Right there. I think that's going to come in handy in a little bit. And you can trim any overages that you have here. It's not perfect, but it's good enough. It's going to work out. I'm happy with it. Okay, so now we are going to section D, still in the same chapter, still in 6. Section D, prepare the side strip. So again, grab your pieces there in the gray rectangle. Back and front flaps, those are back here. I think that's what we're doing, right? No, it's not. That's the main. So before we move on to joining our side strips together in part B, I have to sew in my whip stitch magnets real quick. So I'm going to show you how I do it, including how I thread my needle because I can barely see the eye of it anymore. So here are my magnets. I'm going to put one, those there and those on that side. Here's my little threader. Here's my microscopic needle that I can barely see. So what I do is we take the thread through this needle threader thingy. A lot of you probably have seen this many times in your life, but before I knew about this, when I saw this, it was just magical. Oh my goodness, now it's threaded through the loop, and then we just need to get it through the eye. I swear I need a magnifying glass for real, Ramel. Can you get me one for my birthday? Like bedazzled or pink or something really extra. This is insane. I can't even see it through here. Okay, so normally that works really well, but obviously I need an eye exam. Good to have a thimble when you're hand stitching. All my hand stitching supplies are at home because I like to hand stitch when I'm on the couch. So that's how you do it. I won't film the whole thing, but that's how you do it. So those will be there. And then remember, these will need to be put in position. What I would do is just put this on, overlap it, and mark where you need to sew that on. So just make a little chalk mark or something where to add it, and then whip stitch that side on. Do one side at a time, and then you can do the other side. Okay? Once those are magnetized, and if you want these to stay shut, so that one will need to go there. I don't know. I don't have enough thread here, Ramel. But maybe I can just make this work for the moment. Yeah. Once I get all four corners put in place, it holds the flap together, and then we can overlap it. So we're gonna bring this in 1.5 inches and clip that in place like that. And then this one, we want this pocket facing like this, and we're gonna overlap this side 1.5 inches. And that's what those lines were for, remember? We drew the line. My flap is not exactly, there we go. Okay, so make sure you've got this whole section orientated correctly. And let's get ready. We're almost there. We're almost there. quite understanding where she is. Oh, I see, right there and there. Okay. That's hard to see. Okay, we're gonna go overhead. So the center, I marked the center of these flaps. And now if we go like this, let's make sure everything is lined up. Yep. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is sew here, here, and here. All right. Oops, I shouldn't. All right, let's go to the machine. Now we've got one big sort of gusset, and this is the opening. Remember, I'm going to sew my magnets in when I get home with my proper tools. This is where your handle can poke out. Mine, I'm going to have to see where this side of my magnets go because, like I was saying earlier, my handle is not in the middle of my machine. If you have a Juki, it tends to not be in the middle. It's sort of over to the right. So you might want to adjust your magnet placement if you have a machine like I do. Okay, we are finishing it up. So we're going to take a quick break and then we'll come back with chapter 7, that's Roman numeral 7, assemble the cover. Okay, we're putting this together now. We're going to put the front and back cover with the side panel, the gusset portion, and then we bind it and we're finished. Okay, so you did it. Let's keep going. Let's finish this out. So the important part here is we're sewing the linings right sides together. And I'm going to place it like this. This can get thick, so you might need to get your mallet out. I'm probably going to be getting mine out. If you need to put a walking foot or a hump jumper on your sewing machine, do it. Here's this corner down here. I'm using my jumbo size clips. These corners can be a little bit of a pain, but we're gonna be just fine. Take it slow. And remember, all these edges are covered with binding, so don't get too caught up in the weeds about perfect sewing right here, because these edges get covered. There's one side. Can you see it coming together? It's gonna look like a big toaster cover. All right, let's go to the machine. You might want to increase your pressure or tension. The foot pressure is what I'm talking about, not thread. Just depends on your machine. And then remember to support it out here so it's not pulling and dragging down towards the floor. It can help to use a chrome needle as well. That's what I'm using. I think all needles by Schmetz now are chrome, but I'm going to check all these seams. Looks good. Now we've got the other side. This is happening. Oh, I love it. It's just fun. A labor of love. It's so satisfying once it's done. Sounds a lot like pregnancy. Right? Ramel just gives me big eyes when I do that. Right. Go. If you didn't get your exercise in today, you're going to get it right now. And you'll get it when we put on the binding too. Okay. Let's attach this side. Oh, you know what? I have my clips so that I'm starting with this side. All right. Now I'm balancing on one foot and holding it up on the other side with my arms, so I'm not going to always be able to move this out of the way. But I'll do my best so that you can see. Okay, use this in here. Don't get too caught in the weeds about perfection. If you need to take it out and start again back here, it's okay. It's all put together. Now don't kill me because now we gotta add the binding. You're probably like, ah! I'm not gonna add the binding then. Oh, just do it. It'll be fine. You know what we could do is stitch on the binding on one side and glue it around, let it dry, and then sew it. But it seems like a lot of steps. Let's just get it done. We've got that big section of binding that we made earlier. I accidentally sewed some of this, so I might have to make a little bit more. See, this strip I forgot to use as binding, so I just took it from the pre-made. So I might have to add a little bit. Okay, I'm gonna start on this side over here, and just like before, I'm gonna attach it and sew in the ditch, and then wrap it around and sew it down. Take lots of breaks on this, okay? If you need to trim any of your seam allowances down, you can. I don't I don't have that much seam allowance, so I'm not trimming anything. But let's give it a whirl. We're in this together. I'm gonna try to do this. I really need a table here, Ramel, to hold this. You know what I mean? So now, I might as well go to the work surface. This will be too hard to see at the machine. Now we're gonna continue on around the bottom edge here. We just keep going around. I'm gonna clip this here. Okay, so I'm just continuing on that corner. I'm going to do this bottom section in a second. So right now I'm going to wrap this around to the front. See how this is going to look? And I'll pin clips, put clips here for now. Okay, I'm gonna sew this on, and then I only have the 2 straight bottom edges left. Okay, so on this last little bit, it's wrapping the binding around to the other side. I'm gonna have to do that by hand at home because I just feel like it's a little too thick for my machine. And you know what? I'll just turn on a Netflix show and finish it by hand. It's okay. If you want to wrap it around and use Fabri-Tac glue and then put on the clips and let it sit for about 24 hours, that would hold it in place forever as well. So you don't have to do it. You don't have to finish this by hand. But you know what, you guys? I am so happy with this. I'm really, really happy with this. I unplugged my machine so I can show you how it's gonna sit. I put down, usually my thread thingy is way up here or higher, so I pushed it down. And I just want to show you that the medium does fit my machine. Oops, what did I do? Oh, you can't see it all the way to the ground, but there it is. If I took off my thread spool, it would sit even better. And then I can reach in here and grab my handle. There's my handle if I want to. Otherwise, it's a really pretty dust cover. Now, on the other side, see this big pocket here? On the other side, this is where I'll store my extension table. It goes in there. And then we have this side pocket here, a zipper pocket, as well as another pocket there. And then the mesh pocket over here for the pedal and cords. And then on this side, I did add the little long zipper tab thingy just for decoration. It's kind of cute. So we have the zipper pocket and, sorry, where you can put your manual on how to use your machine. Keep it in there, because then you're gonna know how to do things like buttonholes and whatever else your fancy machine can do. I'm really, really, really happy with this. I love it in the Jennifer Paganelli fabric. It's just so joyful and happy, isn't it? So I can't wait to finish that second edge of the binding. And I like the quilting. See how the diamonds show up? It's just like an added feature. And then inside is the pink. I love it. Could have done that as my outside, I guess. But I love green and pink. Okay, that's a wrap. I hope you had fun. If you need that undercover pattern from By Annie, we have it in the shop in paper format if you like that. She also has PDFs on her website if you want to get it from her. If you want this kit, we have them for a limited time. We don't have tons of this fabric left. So if you want a kit, get in there and pick your size kit and get it now, because it won't last forever. All right, peace, love, sewing.